So, Jeff Abels, C5 Insight. Jeff, we are so appreciative of all the volunteer work you do for the user group community. We love to have you on webinars, and today's session is Marketing in Dynamics 365 Part 2, Planning, Technology, Selection, and Execution. Jeff, I will make you the presenter, and as soon as GoToWebinar allows you to do so, you can share your screen with us.
Okay, let's see. Sharing screen now. Give me a quick screen check, Lisa, to make sure that we can be seen.
I see it perfectly.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Thanks for the great introduction, Lisa. And thanks everybody for joining us, whatever corner of this crazy world that you're joining us from today. I'm so glad to have you here. I love talking to marketers, and I'll even talk a little bit about why at the end of the session. But it's just it's a unique group of people, not only because of who they are and the awesome personalities, but also just because of all the different hats that they have to wear. You've got to be a master analyst, you've got to be a technology superstar, you've got to be a marketing strategist, all at the same time, and it just makes it a great group of people to engage with. So as Lisa said, about a week ago, I did part 1 of this session, and the first part of the session was focused just on how to do things with marketing if you're using Dynamics 365, but you don't have any marketing add-ons yet. And there's a lot you can actually do. So I'll give you a link to that recording a little later in the session. Today, I wanted to start now to talk about, so if you are using or considering one of the marketing add-ons to Dynamics 365, what does that look like? What's the process that you go through to work with that, to set it up, and all of those things? So that's going to be my focus today. It's a broad topic, but let's dive right in. One of the reasons I think this topic is really critical is because of how much value marketers can get out of these, of fully extending their CRM solution, not just doing marketing automation, but doing it within the context of partnering with the sales and customer care people who probably are already using Dynamics in your organization. These are just a couple of statistics that talk about that. But to really realize all those benefits, we've got to go beyond just email marketing. We've got to go beyond marketing working in a silo. We've got to be two-way in our communications, and we've got to be working collaboratively across our entire organization. And CRM makes that possible, but it also introduces some frustrations in that process. So we'll talk about those today. And again, what I talked about last time was this general idea of what can you do in Dynamics 365 for sales as a marketer? Really almost any version of Dynamics 365 CRM, but sales is where most of you would be coming from. And there was a lot. So I gave you the licensing guide. There's a link to it again. That little screenshot there is taken directly out of the licensing guide, talking about if you have those sales licenses, what can you do? And the bullet points talk about all the things you can do as a marketer without investing in any other marketing add-ons to Dynamics at all. So it's a great list, and if you have not delved into that yet, I'd say go check out that webinar. Then we kind of close that conversation by saying, so what will we do this week? What are we going to do in today's webinar? And we said, what does marketing need from a marketing automation platform? I still use the term marketing automation platform. I know it's undergoing some changes, and it's customer experience mapping and stuff like that. That's fine. All the platforms are evolving to do more or less the same kinds of things ultimately. And that's what I mean in the big picture. Marketing automation platform stands for all those things. And there are really 4 different areas that you want to make sure you're thinking about as you get into it. As a marketer, how can you listen to the customer better? Not just listen to them in terms of, hey, I sent an email out. Are they clicking the links? Are they visiting a landing page? That's really important. But how can you collaboratively listen to the customer to say, well, what's sales doing with that customer? Are they interacting with them? Are there any open opportunities with that customer? Do we have customer service issues that we're managing for them? Is there overlay data, demographics or firmographics about that customer? What about our transactions? Are they actually buying anything from us yet, or are they still just a prospect? That's the data step. With all that data, then you go beyond the data as a marketer to say, now I put my analyst hat on. I need to understand that behavior, because that is how I target my marketing. That is how I segment my customers. That is how I personalize what it is I'm sending to them. That is how I score my leads so I can follow up with them on a more automated basis. So the first 2 things are the data step and the analytics step, listening and gathering data, understanding the data to make better decisions as a marketer, so that then you can put them into action. You can actually create better connections through all the different channels and marketing strategies that you have available to you. And then finally, the fourth thing that marketers want to do with a marketing automation platform is know what the results are. And that's putting the analyst hat back on. But when you think about understanding their behavior, you're saying, I'm targeting, I'm personalizing, I'm segmenting. When you're knowing what the behavior is, you're saying, I'm measuring, I'm deciding, is this campaign working for me or not? Did that creative treatment have an impact or not? How am I actually moving the needle? Two different types of analysis that need to be taken care of within the purview of the marketer and the marketing automation platform. And if you guys know me, you know I talk about these four things and this idea of being powered by luck, because really listening, understanding, connecting, and knowing, it's not just what marketers do with customers, it's what every human being does with every other human being. It's at the core of any kind of relationships. And as marketers, you're at the forefront of creating relationships or deepening and broadening relationships with customers and prospects more than potentially anyone else in your organization. So again, that's where we ended last week. If you were with us when we did that, that looks familiar to you. If you weren't with us when we did that, there's a link in the orange box there at the bottom. You're welcome to go watch that video to learn about what can I do with Dynamics today without adding anything else to it at all. And Lisa did such an awesome job of introducing me. I won't spend much time on this at all. There I am. I love this stuff. I love the idea of where digital and the human touch meet, right? How do we use digital not to replace the human touch, but to broaden and deepen relationships more than we ever possibly could have without using it, while complementing that with what we do with the human touch. So that's kind of my mojo. That's what I spend a lot of my time on. I've written some books on it. One kind of cool thing, professional-wise, is for the first time ever, just a few weeks ago, Microsoft awarded me the Microsoft Most Valued Professional recognition. So that was kind of exciting. If you know about what that is, it's fun, and I get to learn some new stuff in advance of others as a result of that. So very cool. And then on the right is, there's a reason why we're all here, right? This is the reason why we all work so hard. It's all the stuff that goes on outside of the workplace. For me, it's being a dad and husband in an empty nest. Our kids have moved out. They're both married. We have two awesome sons-in-law that we love hanging around with. We also have a fairly brand new grandbaby, Theodore Evergreen Tramolini. You can probably pick out which one he is in the pictures there. Is about 4 months old right now. So born right as this whole coronavirus thing started. We've still been able to get together with him, even though he lives 3 or 4 hours away from us now. And there's our pup. She is our quarantine friend in our empty nest here. So she sleeps right next to my desk a lot of times when I'm doing these sessions. And my wife and I love hanging out together, drinking fine wine, and riding a motorcycle together whenever we get a chance. So that's a little bit about us, and hopefully you guys will connect with me and tell me more about yourselves as we do this. So as you think about implementing a MAP, a marketing automation platform, on top of a customer relationship management solution like Dynamics, there's a lot of steps to think about. So this slide, 11 steps that we're going to go through today, look, each one of these could easily be a full day seminar or a month or more long process getting it implemented and moving forward. So obviously we don't have that much time, and depending on where you are, you may be way beyond some of the things in this list. And some of the things on this list may be way beyond where you're ready to talk about yet today. And hopefully a few are right on, spot on where you are, and a perfect topic to talk about. So my approach is to talk about this whole process today. This is my outline for what we'll talk about. Hopefully give you a taste of each, no matter where you are. Hopefully give you an item or two that you can take away and say, I didn't think about it that way before. That's really helpful. But also open up for more conversation. So as I go into this, I don't want you to be shy about asking about one of these topics in more detail. That's fine. And if you don't do it, what I'll do at the very end is I'm going to ask you to at least kind of jot notes down or something like that as I go through it. So if there is something that you kind of thought, I would have really liked to have heard more about that, tell me about it. because what I'm trying to do is work with the UG to figure out what are the most relevant topics to talk to marketers about right now, because there are so many. It's such a broad area, and you're not a gigantic group within the UG. So I want to make sure I'm picking out the most important stuff that's important to you. And if you're not a marketer, but you're here as an administrator or something like that, representing the marketers that you support, all the same. You're a part of this picture. You're a part of the marketing group. Even if you're not in the direct line of command, you're a part of their virtual team and a really important part of it. So no matter who you are, I'd love to hear more from you. So working through this from the top down in numbered order, starting with a marketing strategy and a CRM plan. So I like to start with this because so often when I get engaged with a client, they're kind of in the, I want to do this, right? So if you look at this bullseye and you think about, well, we start with why in the bullseye and we work out, so many people are in the what when they talk about a marketing application platform or doing marketing in combination with CRM. It's sort of, I want to start X. I want to start doing better social engagement. I want to do better email marketing. I want to have great nurture campaigns, whatever it is. All of those are good things. But if you haven't done enough work on the why, or if I haven't connected well enough to it as I'm engaging with you, it's really, really hard to get traction on this. So you're probably kind of beyond it, but here's some basic questions to ask yourself. First of all, who are you as a marketing department? Because a lot of the stuff out there, it's very different in terms of what kind of marketing department it supports. Some marketing departments are really just centralized marketing. It's all the stuff that's automated that never really is a direct customer conversation, which is fine. That's a cool place to be, and that's kind of a typical marketing department. On the other hand, some marketing departments also own inside sales, and they have to do lead follow-up and update records and make outbound and handle inbound calls and those kinds of things. And sometimes a marketing department is under a CMO, and all of sales is under that department too. So thinking through those things is important. And are you a B2B marketer or a B2C marketer? Do you need to do sales enablement as part of your marketing, or do you even have a sales team at all? Since you're here for Dynamics, a Dynamics type event, I'm guessing almost everyone here is also supporting a sales team, but not all marketing departments do. Some companies are very marketing first, marketing driven, very low human to human interaction. Others are very high human to human interaction, and marketing's role is 95% to support sales with generating leads and creating sales literature. And then everyone else is somewhere in between those two. And then the next question is, do you have a CRM plan yet? So many organizations who have CRM just kind of have CRM, right? They've implemented it. Their plan, if anything, was here's the technology pieces I'm going to turn on and some stuff I'm going to set up, but they don't really have a roadmap for where are we going with CRM and what are our definitions. And if you're trying to interface as a marketer with a group of CRM users and there's no CRM plan, it's really hard to dovetail those things together. So do you have that plan or not? There's a link down there where you can go get more information about how to develop a CRM plan if you don't have one yet. And then what marketers very often struggle with is, what's your data quality like in CRM? If you're going to be codependent, mutually dependent with your sales and customer care teams to work in CRM, oftentimes you're going to care about data quality more than any of the other CRM users. So who owns data quality? How good is the data quality? Is it ready for you to engage with it as a marketer? So step one, marketing strategy and CRM plan. Step two, now think about the tactics. You have your plan. What do you do as marketers within your organization? What is tactically working for you? And in marketing, there's this word cloud is some, but not all, of the different types of channels and marketing strategies and tools that marketers have to use to get their jobs done, right? So probably most of what you do is in here somewhere. There are tons to choose from. Now, to give you a little more perspective on that, if we take the tools that a sales department would often use, and oftentimes marketing has to support that. For example, maybe you have an MQL process where it's marketing's job to do marketing qualification, sales job to do sales qualification. You've got those tools. Maybe you're doing account-based marketing and sales has to do some of the follow-up, but marketing has to do a lot of the support to make account-based marketing or ABM possible. And add one more wrinkle to it. This is a mini version of a slide I did in my presentation last week. This little slide with the white background down there in the rectangle, that is a list taken about I think it's 4 or 5 years ago, when we started pulling together all the categories of marketing tools that are that's kind of the colored rectangles in there, and then the subcategories, and then a subset of the many tools that are available to deliver that functionality. So when you think about what marketing's tactics are, there is a very, very, very large list of potential tactics out there. So one of the things I challenge people to think about as they get into marketing automation is to think very seriously about what is working for you today first, right? Usually as marketing looks at this new investment in a marketing automation platform, I'll try to call it a MAP from now on to shorten it a little bit. They're very focused on what they can do in the future, and that's great. There's a lot of cool new things they can do, but sometimes they don't focus enough on what they're already doing that's proven and working. And look, if marketing has been around for a while and you're doing some things, probably you and the organization have accepted these things are working for us. Don't diminish those and look to all the other things you want to do. Look at those as things you want to test. You don't know that they're going to work for you. You might know they work for someone else. You might be excited about them. All of that's great, but don't lose sight of what's working. I think as marketers, one of the things we often do is we get bored with our own strategies long before they stop working and long before our customers do. So don't get too excited about the new until you're sure you're deploying something that can support the old. And then when you think about the new, think about what has the greatest potential. What are our biggest bottlenecks? Where do we need to address things that are helping us achieve our mission? And your mission, if you're like a typical marketing department, it might be, how can I generate more qualified leads for sales? That's a big statement in and of itself. But it might be, how can I create content that sales can use, but that also contributes to lead management? So one way to start looking at those future things and understanding and prioritizing them is to use journey mapping and persona definition to do that. So few marketers do it. It's a very powerful tool set that can really help marketers, because marketing is not like sales. Marketing is not like customer care. Marketing is different from every other organization in the company because customers don't move through what you're doing in a linear fashion. And you could argue they don't with sales and customer care either, but really sales kind of has this idea of a funnel, and people move more or less from the top to the bottom of the funnel. But you might have 15 or 20 different contacts with customers under the same customer under all sorts of different nuanced ways before you actually convert them into a lead. And then again, from the time they're a lead till they're a qualified opportunity. So marketing needs something with a lot of design thinking, but not quite as much structure as most other departments use. Journey mapping is a great way to do that. So if you haven't done that yet, that's a great way to think about prioritizing what you're going to do for your marketing automation platform. Now think about terms and owners of different things. Here's what I mean by that. This is just a little bit of a sample, but ideally you work through thinking through as an organization, not just as a marketing department, particularly because we're talking about MAP and CRM. Sorry, I'm over acronyming you here, but the marketing automation along with the customer relationship management. And if marketing has one definition for a lead and sales has a different definition for a lead, you're gonna have really big problems when you bring those two worlds together. And this may sound ridiculously simple, right? Well, a lead is a lead, right? I can tell you this, I've worked in organizations where the marketing department says, really a lead is anyone who visits a web page and fills out a form, among other things. It's almost like an interaction. So me, Jeff Abels, I might be a lead 5 times because I visited your website and filled out a landing page type of form, requested information 5 times. Whereas sales looks at a lead and says, a lead is a list of people I've got to make follow-up phone calls to. And so I'll just pull in all the leads and start following up on those leads with phone calls. Well, guess what? If Jeff Abels is in there 5 times, that's going to confuse the heck out of sales. That's one simple, potentially conflicting definition that can cause significant problems. So start to get your hand around these things. There are multiple ways to define things. There are some best practice ways for sure, some ways I prefer to see things defined and that I recommend. But I always try to sit down and listen to a team really carefully before suggesting definitions, because sometimes there's so much history already in place, it makes more sense to go with what they have or slightly modify it versus trying to go back and completely reinvent the wheel. If you're in marketing and you're starting to partner with your other groups that are already using CRM, work on understanding their definitions of these things before overlaying your marketing definition on it. And you might be worlds apart. You might have to both come together and redefine those things. But listen first and understand. Remember, we talked about luck. Same thing here. Luck is what you want to do as a marketer in terms of how you connect with your customers. Luck is what you want to do with your internal teams too. Listen to your other users, understand them, start building out these terms. And also think about ownership. So who's going to own what inside of CRM? For example, in CRM, there's something called campaigns in there automatically. Regardless of what marketing automation tool you put on top of it, you're going to use campaigns, you're going to use marketing lists. Can anyone create a campaign? Can sales leaders create them, but sales users can't? What kind of confusion might that create if marketing owns campaigns and sales owns campaigns? Is there a use case for both of those? And if so, should you mark them differently so that when a user goes to fill in a source campaign on a lead record, they don't see a long list of campaigns that could never be source campaigns, and they've got to filter through them all to find the 5 ones that actually could be lead source campaigns. And think about your other ownership of other things too. When it comes to things like leads and opportunities, you're going to run into situations where marketing is probably going to partially but not fully own those records. Marketing probably creates many, maybe most, but probably not all the leads in your CRM solution. And marketing probably needs to own some of the fields, all of them when they first create it, but some of them like lead source and source campaign, because sales may not see the value in owning and filling those fields out. And the same may be true of opportunities as well. So understand who owns what, who's going to update what, how your data is going to stay fresh. So we're kind of still in that top tier, the first 4 things. The next thing to think about is, who is your team? So as a marketer, remember, it's probably more important for you to have a cross-functional team that's supporting you in your journey than anyone else in the organization. I'm not going to read through this list of people, but there are lots and lots of hats to wear. So understand who's on your marketing team, yes, but who else is on your team? Who is on this cross-functional team that's going to help you effectively pull off your MAP program integration? And one clue I would give you that I've experienced is this: more hats equals more wear and tear on a person, and it's someone having to learn more and not go very deep with as many things. So be creative about this. Try not to, if you're in a small marketing department of 1 to 4 or 5 people, if you're trying to wear every one of these hats, you're probably going to exhaust yourself and be beyond your limits and make some mistakes that are not going to fare very well for you. So look around and say, are there people in my IT department that can wear some of these hats for me? Are there people in my web design company or my web hosting company that can do some of these things? Do we have a CRM partner who can do some of these things? Are there people inside of the sales and customer care team who can help me with some of these things as well? So look at this list of roles. What I can tell you is, this probably is not complete, but B, every one of these roles is going to be important throughout your journey. Someone's going to have to wear these hats. So you're going to need to figure out who that is. The more you have a general idea of that up front, the smoother this process is going to flow for you. Now comes the fun part, right? It's okay, we've got our plan in place. We need to go select a tool. Let's launch this plan. So it's kind of like a rocket ship, right? When marketing looks at it and says, we're really excited about this new product, right? We're doing a lot of stuff as marketing. This is going to enable us to do more things and in fewer places and connected to what else is going on elsewhere. And so when we think about this new rocket ship that we just bought or that we're about to buy, we start to think about all these great new, fairly complex things we can do, right? Nurture campaigns, multi-touch journeys, campaign automation where it's not just an email, but it actually follows up with the customer based on triggers automatically, based on their behaviors, sales cadences that tie in marketing contact with sales contact, all of those really cool things. But remember, all of those things are kind of the apex of your MAP implementation. They're what you do after you've built a good foundation. So as you think about planning your launch, think about incrementally rolling out different pieces of functionality, not because the technology can't be implemented rapidly, it can, but humans can only absorb it so fast. So what's your incremental plan to say, one at a time. We're going to start doing more things in this map solution, and we'll eventually retire maybe an older solution, and we'll build towards this bigger picture. So what does that look like? You don't have to start in this exact order. I've just tried to categorize some things here for you. One is lead management. Now, marketing may or may not be deeply involved in lead management, but you should at least understand it thoroughly, because that's probably going to be a really important part of how what you set up is going to interact with the CRM solution and everybody who uses it. So assignment tracking, scoring, all of those are things. Now, just because I list all those under lead management doesn't mean you have to do all of lead management at once. You might start with, hey, I need to be able to create leads. I need to have rules for assigning leads. I want to track them. I'm going to hold off on scoring my leads into the future. I'm going to hold off on worrying about source campaign and complex tracking in the future. That's okay. You can break these up. I've just kind of categorized them into digestible chunks for you. Another area you might want to think about is all of your inbound marketing. So, okay, information's coming to me from content on the web, people are hitting landing pages, pay-per-click campaigns, search engine marketing or optimization, all of those things. I want to get those inside of this tool. And then maybe outbound campaigns. Hey, we're doing email already all the time. Let's go ahead and get that set up in here and port that over. And there's a lot of other types of outbound we can also do and start managing in a centralized location. Things like surveys. Can we do survey management in here? Surveys can actually trigger other marketing campaigns. They can be built into processes like events and that kind of thing. So getting surveys deployed can be helpful. What about social marketing? Not just automating your postings, but even listening to social so you can better engage with customers on social channels, have a conversation, maybe even do sales enablement. So your sales team can use this marketing automation platform that's now built into CRM as a helpful way for them to say, here's content created by my marketing team, and I can actually use that as a salesperson to position myself as an expert by one click being able to post that out on different channels that I engage with my customers on. And then at the apex of that is usually something like event marketing. I put that at the apex here because that usually relies on tying together a lot of these other things, plus some of its own stuff on top of it. Once you have all those pieces of your foundation built, then your rocket ship is ready. Now you've got content created, you know how to use these things, you're ready to actually put this into more sophisticated nurture campaigns and that kind of thing. So think about your plan to launch carefully as you step into it. Then think about your vision for automation. Now, you're not going to think about everything you're going to possibly automate with your marketing platform up front, but at least get a general sense. And your customer journey maps will really help you in your journey to developing this. But as you think about automation candidates, these are typical things that people think about, right? Like, I want to do great nurture campaigns. I want to do lead scoring. When a new customer comes in, I want to welcome them. I want to do triggered emails. So I don't just send out email blasts, but I send out emails triggered based on a customer behavior because I know that those respond at about a 10 times better rate than unsolicited one-off emails. Those are the kinds of automation candidates you want to look at. But as you look at those, remember that each one of those candidates has automation requirements behind it as well. Again, this is a partial list, but this is important because you need to think about how you're going to set up your CRM and your MAP to fulfill these automation requirements, such as when I import, do I need to have that be duplicate free? Remember, I talked about the definition of a lead. This goes back to that definition. If you know that definition, you start to know the answer to this question. But it begs another question. Okay, if I'm going to have my leads be duplicate free, but I got a list of people that attended this event that we also attended I want to follow up with, if I import that list, I'm not going to import all the leads because I'm not going to get the duplicates. So I need to make sure that my marketing automation platform can support adding those leads to a marketing list so I can still identify them. I still have 100% coverage of that list, even though I didn't create new records for 100% of the people on that list. There's a long list of other things there you can read through on your own, but a lot of considerations around automation to make sure that based on who you are, not based on the tools, most of the tools can support many of these different scenarios, but based on who you are, how does the automation need to work? And then once you've understood all that, you can start to think about the process of technology selection. What's the right marketing automation platform tool for my organization? I've listed the top contenders here for Dynamics 365 integration by and large. So let's quickly work through that list. with a few high-level things. What I can tell you is the first two on that list, those are the ones that if anybody is implementing marketing automation on their Dynamics 365 platform, those are the first two that really kind of have to be on the list to be considered. And then as we work further down into the list, less and less so, but there's some good reasons to consider them, again, depending on who you are and what it is that you want to accomplish. What I can tell you in general is, in my experience, for most marketers, except for those in very large organizations with very large budgets, where they have tens of thousands or millions of people they're interacting with, so a small change can actually have a big return, so a bigger budget makes sense. Everyone else, you probably want to focus on one of the top two, because it's really, really important to you as a marketer that your map solution integrate cleanly and 100% with your CRM solution. If you're spending a lot of your time as a marketer saying, I got to generate a list in CRM, I got to pull the list out of CRM, I got to import it into my marketing automation platform to send my email. And by the way, if it creates a landing page lead, somehow I have to push that into my CRM. And I got to do it quick because I got to follow up on those quickly. All of a sudden, your life becomes a lot of doing work that the computer should be doing for you, basically. Dynamics 365 for marketing and ClickDimensions are both the best integrated solutions that you can get. So if you want full integration, minimum amount of technical work for your marketing team to do, those are the ones to absolutely consider. I've listed some pros and cons for them overall there, but if I look at those top two, what I'd say is those are very integrated with CRM. In fact, they're really built directly on top of the Dynamics 365 CRM platform. And interestingly enough, even though ClickDimensions is not a Microsoft solution, it is probably better integrated with your sales data and CRM data than Dynamics 365 for marketing is. Now, Dynamics 365 for marketing, a relatively new solution. I don't remember the start date, but I'd say it's probably been out for 3-ish years now. Very powerful, does a lot of stuff. One of my pet peeves with it is Dynamics 365 for marketing only sends emails to contacts, not to leads. So if you have a list of leads and you want to send an email to them, you need to create contacts for those leads. And if you look closely at how it works, it kind of favors this definition of having lots of duplicate leads. So that can work, clearly. Microsoft's got a solution based on it. I have found that creates a lot of complexity and potential confusion for users. So not as wild about that solution. Now, they do have it on the roadmap, I believe, to eventually be able to send a lead. So hopefully we'll see that come along soon. ClickDimensions is a very mature product. In fact, they just celebrated their 10-year anniversary. They only work with Dynamics. So if you're not using Dynamics 365, ClickDimensions isn't even an option for you. That's good news and bad news. They don't have as diverse of a range of clients as some companies do, but it's good news because their entire product is built on top of, and within Dynamics 365. So if you already know Dynamics 365 overall, the user interface is kind of the same. It uses data directly in Dynamics. You don't have to have some integration process. It's literally, if I'm creating a list, I'm looking at records directly inside of Dynamics when I create that list. It is a little quirky in my experience. There are some things that can be a little frustrating. I think most of these have some quirkiness when you're editing HTML and that kind of stuff. There's just some quirkiness with that stuff. And their customer support has a bit of a spotty track record. That not according to me. And full disclosure, we're a Microsoft partner and we're a ClickDimensions partner. So either one of these is, in our interest to also get people on board with them. But what I have found is a number of customers have said ClickDimensions has left us a little frustrated and wanting with their customer support, particularly if we want changes to the core product to support our unique marketing strategy. Not surprising, these top two are very mature solutions, and so they're going to be a little less responsive to customers because they're not building market share so much as they're solidifying their current client base. Now, ClickDimensions, even though it's been around for a while, they're rolling out lots of new features still too. So literally, I was just on a call a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, and they went through a litany of new things that are coming out to do social better, email marketing better, A/B testing on your web pages together, all sorts of things like that. So all of these continue to grow and develop at various different paces, but none of them are sitting static being cash cow licensing businesses. They all seem to be expanding. Influence and Digital, both less often heard of. Both of them going directly after a Dynamics marketplace, from what I've seen. Influence I can speak to with a little more credibility because one of our customers recently chose Influence, and in fact they chose it because they were frustrated with ClickDimensions. There were some limitations that they just couldn't get around. They went with Influence. They're new to Influence. They've walked us through what they're doing with it. It's clearly pretty well integrated with Dynamics from what I could see. But it is a new contender. I don't know as much about it. That's always a little more risky. And I will say, looking at the way it was tracking interactions with customers, it looked like it was almost to the point of distraction. If I were a sales rep looking at those tracking interactions, I would say my interactions are pushed way down because there's so many other interactions that are available on this list. On the other hand, by the way, with ClickDimensions, I would say you almost don't see them at all as a salesperson unless the marketing department adopts routines to make sure that that they're pushing those out there to be made more visible. Digital, I literally just ran into about a week and a half ago. I had a little email interaction with the folks at that company. I put them on the list only because when I looked at them, they were very specifically reaching out saying, we are a great Dynamics 365 integrated marketing automation platform. And although they're new to Dynamics from what I can tell, and they're not like Click or Microsoft Dynamics for marketing, I'd love it if Microsoft came up with shorter names for their stuff. They have actually, Digital has been around for quite a while. They're just new to Dynamics 365. So I think they're about a 10-year-old company with a somewhat mature product. They're now rolling it into Dynamics 365, trying to win some market share there as well. Don't know any clients who are on it yet, have not had any detailed conversations with the Digital folks yet, so I can just point to that as something to consider if you're in here. Marketo and HubSpot are both third-party solutions. They do not have native integration with Dynamics. Marketo is now, I believe, owned by Adobe. HubSpot is an independent company. My sense is both of these are the two most mature products in the market. So if you're saying, we are one of those big companies, we need best of breed, we need the best marketing automation platform we can possibly get, that's Marketo and HubSpot. And I'm not saying they're miles ahead of the others on this chart. They're all kind of close to each other, but Marketo and HubSpot have just been around for a long time, have made huge investments. They're very mature products and can do a whole lot of stuff, but expect to invest a lot in integrating those and making them work with Dynamics. Now, I'll tell you, both of them will say on their websites, we integrate with Dynamics 365, but literally last week, I do a lot of online forum participation to keep and maintain my MVP status, among other things. And I was literally watching somebody looking for help, working through a very frustrating situation, trying to get HubSpot and Dynamics to talk to each other. We have migrated people from HubSpot to ClickDimensions because of that frustration. But we've also seen a few people migrate away from ClickDimensions to things like HubSpot as well. So there's no perfect solution out there for you for these things. All I can do is kind of give you this high level, and depending on who you are, you can look at these criteria and make a decision, or you can go through a more arduous process for your business of getting demos for each of these and trying to make a more informed decision. What I would suggest to you overall is the 6 steps before this really help you conceptualize what you're looking at here, right? If you just get demos, first of all these are going to demo great. They're all amazing tools compared to a one-off, email management solution or something like that that's not integrated with CRM. These are all going to be an amazing leap forward for you. The demo is not really going to tell you what you want unless you look closely at, here are things we already do that are important to us. Here are things we conceive of doing that are going to be important in the near future. Now let's look at exactly how we can do those types of campaigns inside of these tools. Some of them might be showstoppers for you. You might say, look, we absolutely have to have a very functional event management portal to be able to do some event management stuff that we do. Well, you might find a better solution in Dynamics 365 for marketing than in any of the other tools if you do that. So understand what those things are and what your showstoppers are so that you can make a good evaluation.
Jeff, there is a question in the queue.
Okay.
If marketing is not used in the process of sales, can it be activated leading score?
I'm not sure I understand the question. If marketing is not being used in the process of sales, can you still use scoring? Is that, maybe someone could clarify it, or if someone doesn't mind just speaking up, we can chat about it.
Yeah, let me know, Vanessa, if you want me to unmute you or if you have some clarifying statements that you can put into the questions queue so that we can make sure we get that answered. Vanessa may be typing now.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit for a second and let her type. We got a small audience today, so we'll take time to try to get through these.
Sure. And I can certainly take anybody off. This is a good reminder too. If you want to raise your hand, I can certainly take you off mute. We know not everybody's got a microphone in a quiet place, a relatively quiet place anyway, that they feel comfortable speaking from. So that's okay. You can type your question into the questions queue as well. That's what it's there for.
Well, I will, if there's been no clarification, I'll take a quick shot at this, what I think, because I heard scoring and I heard marketing not using. So if I understand the question correctly, it might be, hey, can we still do scoring even though marketing is not a user of CRM? So absolutely, there's a lot of ways to do scoring, and I'm not planning on a deep dive of that today. But there's scoring tools available in all of these marketing tools that are on the monitor right now. You can use basic scoring that you build workflows or write script or use Power Automate to create within your system. Or if you get one of the Microsoft add-ons, and I'm going to forget the name of it, it's not Sales Intelligence, but it's basically the Sales Intelligence arm of Dynamics 365 for sales. It has scoring algorithms in it too. And it's going to score for you based on whatever data is available in CRM. So if you've got marketing engaged and contributing, that's going to add richer data to it. But if not, it's going to use whatever data you have available to help you do scoring. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a shot at an answer to the question.
Great. If I see something else come in. Oh, yeah, that was my question. Thank you for answering. So perfect. You nailed it.
Okay, good. Good guess. Thank you. All right, good. Glad I got it. Okay, so now you're into installing and setting up your solution, and obviously that's going to vary widely depending on exactly what you've selected to do. But what's going to be common to that is a lot of what you've already decided. That planning is going to come in handy, right? So the decisions you need to make are you going to have duplicate detection involved? What happens when there's a repeat submission? I've seen this a lot of times. So what I mean by that is, one core component of marketing automation is usually something like, hey, a landing page. We're doing content marketing. We do it at C5 Insight all the time. I'll give you some content marketing things you can go retrieve from our website or ask me for via email. And so when someone goes to that landing page and says, hey, Jeff, I want to get that CPR for CRM download because we have some struggles and I want to learn more about how to recover from CRM problems. So you fill out that form, a lead gets created inside of our CRM. What if you come back and you fill out that form or another form 6 months from now? Well, duplicate detection is used. It's not going to create a new lead. So how is sales going to know that there's been a very important interaction that they probably want to follow up on? You need to think about that. Are you going to use canned spam? Or are you going to use more of a GDPR approach for overall compliance? Are your landing pages going to be built 100% in your automation platform, your marketing platform? Are they going to be built 100% in your content management platform, which basically just means what's hosting your website? Or for most, it's a combination of each. You kind of build out the landing page form in your marketing automation platform, but then you use a widget or an iframe to put it on the page for you. So you'll need to think about those things as well. I work with a lot of companies who they say, well, we're using this marketing automation platform and man, we're having a really hard time designing an attractive looking landing page. Well, that's because the platform you've chosen really isn't very good at designing attractive landing pages. Your content management system, on the other hand, is great. That's why you selected it to build your website. Build your landing page there, all the graphical and layout and design components, and then just build a form in your marketing automation platform. Or you can even build a form in your CMS and then use some code to feed the data directly into CRM. And then we get into a lot of technical things you're also going to need to know the answers to. Not going to worry too much about those overall at this point. Suffice it to say, when it comes time to do this, this is why you need someone from your web hosting partner, probably someone who knows your IT infrastructure really, really well, likely someone who knows your CRM really well, so you can have all these conversations and move through this process relatively quickly. Now, step 9, learning and adoption. So you've got your platform, it's installed, it's operational, but you need to start actually adopting it. And this is where that planning, if you remember that little rocket ship illustration earlier, if you've done a good job with that plan, you just begin executing this. You say, hey, look, we've got all these email campaigns we're already doing. Let's start moving those over into this new platform. And then the next thing and the next thing, so that you've moved all your processes over and they're working well. Then you expand your learning, and ultimately you start doing new things that you've conceived of that it's taken some learning curve to do. That's great, but you also need to be prepared potentially as a marketer for some paradigm shifts. If you're not familiar with the term paradigm shift, it's basically a whole new way of thinking about something, right? It's changing your mind. Sometimes for a sales group, a paradigm shift might be, hey, I'm used to keeping all this knowledge in my head or on my spiral bound notepad. Now a paradigm shift is I got to be digital. I've got to get it all into this system. But when marketers start integrating with a sales team with a CRM solution, they often have some paradigm shifts. Here's some of the more common ones you and your marketing team need to be ready for. First of all, you're probably used to working with contacts. It might go by different names. You might call them leads or contacts or lists or whatever it is, but basically lists of people that I'm pushing my marketing content out to, right? Most of your older platforms have that. In Dynamics, your contacts are really split into two groups. You've got leads and you've got contacts. Now you might go, okay, two groups. I think I get that. Believe me, it gets way more confusing than that if you've never worked with things that way before, where you say, I want to target a group of people with a certain piece of marketing content. Great. Is that a list of leads? Is it a list of contacts? Is it both? Might there be duplicates between the two? Am I pulling inactive leads who've already converted over to contacts and I'm pulling leads only? I need to make sure I'm not doing that. So all of these are things you're going to need to get your head around. And it takes a few times around the track to really understand the concept of what you're working with. Part of it to me is I spend a lot of time helping marketers understand why these things are defined differently. And it's mostly to support sales and marketing processes that are different from each other so that then they can more naturally flow into these. So it's not just training in this is what one is, this is what the other, but why are these two things even in existence? Contact lists. So you probably marketers have ways of creating lists, segments, categories of those contacts. So they don't reach out to every contact every time they send something out. They've got some way of creating sub lists. In Dynamics, they're going to be working with what's called marketing lists. There's also, depending on the solution you use, other options like segments and stuff like that. But ultimately, marketing lists are this way of saying, this is the way I'm taking leads, contacts, and I'm targeting them differently, right? I can select them. Now, lists are either lists of leads or lists of contacts. So as a marketer, you'll be looking at that, maybe saying, well, wait a minute, this campaign has to go to both leads and contacts. Don't worry, your marketing automation platform will usually allow you to bring both of those together to send them. And again, it depends. Dynamics 365 for marketing doesn't do that very well. ClickDimensions and most of the others do a reasonably good job of that. They let you bring those both together in one world. And then you've got dynamic versus static lists and those kinds of things as well. So other learning curves you just need to be ready for, a new nomenclature around how we think about getting stuff done with CRM, and even kind of learning not just the marketing tools like campaigns and automations, journeys, QA testing and stuff like that, but also CRM specific jargon, because oftentimes as a marketer, you're probably going to get into the automation components of your marketing automation tool, and you're going to run up against a wall and say, I can't quite do what I want to do with this for some reason. But oftentimes the answer to that is there's something else that can be done in CRM to support you, to enable you to do that. Maybe you need someone to create a workflow or a Power Automate for you, or maybe you need someone on your team to learn how to leverage those tools. Maybe you're not quite sure how to track something. More on that in a session next week. So be prepared to go through that paradigm shift as you work with different things. You're going to have to not only know those terms, but interact with other people in your organization around those terms. When you execute campaigns, depending on the campaign, how you do this is different, but the concept of testing, absolutely critical and probably kind of different than the way you've thought about it. First of all, remember, always do your regular campaign testing. Always assume I can improve this. There is a better way to do my campaign. So most of these tools have A/B testing built in, and some of it's totally automated. So when you send an email out, you may say, okay, well, I'm sending an email out that's inviting them to a webinar. And so 5,000 emails are going to go out. Well, you can do an automated A/B test to say, hey, you know what? Send 1,000 out to start with and send 50% of them this invitation format and the other 50% this invitation format. And depending on the click-through rate or the registration for the event rate, whichever one you want, then send the other 4,000 out using the one that worked best. Now, the other thing to think about with audience offering creative is what I call the 40-40-20 rule. And that is in any kind of marketing, 40% of your results is from your audience. Are you talking to the right people? If you're talking to the wrong person, doesn't matter what you're talking to them about, they're not going to be very responsive. Number two, are you making them the right offer? Is it something that's going to be appealing to them? If you're talking to the right person, but it's something they're not interested in, it's not going to be very effective. And only 20% of your results are the creative. And as marketers, what I see us doing oftentimes is spending lots of time creating beautiful creative. And make no mistake, it needs to be professional and understandable, but spending a little bit more time on targeting better, polishing that offer a little bit more, making it a little bit more enticing, a much better return on your investment. And then think about what could go wrong. That's part of what is important about testing too, particularly if you're doing automations that are going to be in production on an ongoing basis. You don't want a mistake to keep going out again and again. There's two types of what can go wrong. First of all, there's things that might need to get updated in CRM. So if you say, someone had to create a new field for me to do something or add a workflow, and you might say, that's not really my job to do that work as a marketer, that's fine, but it's probably your job to fully test it as a marketer to make sure it works the way you expect it to work before you put it into production. Work with your CRM partner, your administrator, your development team, whoever it is, to understand what does user acceptance testing look like so I can do that well. But then there's campaigns themselves, and you'll test those in production. Now be careful about your CRM partner and your administrator in those cases, because what can happen is they might hear test and they might think user adoption testing, user UAT, user acceptance testing. That's not what you're after. You're just doing quality testing for your campaign. So start with really small lists and test the variations. And here's what you need to think about. You need to think about what could possibly go wrong with this thing I'm doing, because I guarantee you it will. If you don't think about it, it will. So could I have targeted the wrong person or the wrong group? Did I somehow get my filtering criteria wrong? Did I maybe miss the right person? Did I get my filtering criteria wrong and target somebody I should have targeted? So worked with one client who literally, it was a financial services client, they literally sent out a pre-approved credit offer to a group of customers who should not have been pre-approved. So now they were exposed. They have made an offer. They have to live up to that offer or they could be sued. So on the hook for potentially millions and millions of dollars of either bad credit or lawsuits if they weren't careful. They swapped their two audiences around. So be careful of those things. Will sales know who responded if someone responds to this? Will your follow-up work well? Will sales be distracted by my list? Am I importing something and suddenly sales is going to see all this new stuff and they're going to say, well, why are these here? Why am I supposed to follow up on them? And maybe they're not, but you don't know how to hide that from them. Do all my links work and go to the right place? Are there typos? The list goes on and on. So think about all of those different things and test every one of those. And the other thing to remember is if you make one change, as you go through all the testing and you get your last test and go, oh, I found this one little error in my filter criteria, let me go fix it. Go back to the top of your QA checklist and go all the way through it again, because you never know what you might break without thinking about it. Last step, which is we're right up against our time. So the last step is think about your campaign analytics. And there's really kind of two ways to think about this. Each campaign needs its own analytics. Remember all those campaigns we talked about earlier. So you've got email campaign analytics, and you've got your Google AdWords analytics, and you've got your landing page analytics, and all those different campaigns, those one-off campaigns you run, you should analyze those campaigns. But you should also start to think about your global analytics, because really the life of a lead, the life of a customer, sometimes, in this case, you can see they visited a web page and they filled out the landing page, then they visited another one, they got an email from us and a call from us, and they visited another landing page and they came to an event, some social interaction, all before they became an opportunity. Now, if you're just tracking the latest thing before they became an opportunity, you're saying, wow, that social campaign worked great, but all those landing page things didn't do anything for me. You want to look at this globally to say, how can I understand the full impact, the halo effect of these campaigns one to another? That's global analytics, and that's what we'll talk about a little bit in our session next week. So some quick wrap-up things. I know we're right at our time, but I'd love to get a little more engagement here with our group. But Couple of things to know about the future. First of all, coming up next week, we're going to talk specifically about understanding and tracking marketing campaigns. I'm super excited about it because I've got a colleague from ClickDimensions, Emma Darcy, who just became an MVP along with me. She's a lot of fun and super sharp, and so she and I are going to just kind of talk back and forth about what we see going on with those and share some best practices. In August, I have an academy, a half-day academy session coming up. So if you're here and you're thinking, boy, we could do a better job, we need our leadership to embrace CRM more, we need to drive adoption more, that might include some marketing discussion, come to that half-day academy session. And I'll be speaking, in fact, I'll be speaking at the Australia UG also, virtually from here in North Carolina. But I'll also be, again, back in October in Nashville. I really hope you guys will join us either virtually or in person. I will be there in person no matter what. It's a short motorcycle ride away for me, so it's a good excuse to ride through some beautiful mountain roads. What I'd like to ask you guys is this, and you can raise your hand and say it, or you can type it in, but we will race through a ton of topics today. We didn't go very deep on any of them. We just kind of hit the surface of the iceberg on each one. As people who attend to this, what would you like to learn more about? What kind of information, particularly around marketing, since that's our topic today? I speak on a lot of other things, but what kind of information around marketing would help you? What would you like to dive deeper? It can be one of those 11. It can be something completely different. But if you would raise your hand and Lisa will take you off mute, or just type it in and Lisa will read it out. I will let you start on that, and I'll throw up my last slide while you do that. So if you're going down that path, you can kind of keep typing, and then Lisa can read those out. I do have some resources for you here today too. So I mentioned I had a bunch of links in here. If you didn't get them, you want all the links, glad to get you the links. I've also got an ebook for you that I mentioned earlier called CPR for CRM. To get it, you can just hit me on my email address, and I'll follow up with all of those links for you. I talked about luck. If you like the idea of luck, there's a book on Amazon that you can go get. I call it a Saturday afternoon read. It's a very high level story format about human relationships in the digital age. And then lastly, if you'd like to engage around any of this stuff, it's what I do, it's what my organization does. We'd love to help you. If that's a short conversation on the phone to go in depth with one of these topics, happy to have that conversation. If it's a deeper dive or more deeply engaged with each other and we need to do some kind of project together, of course, that's what keeps our lights turned on. So I'd love to do that as well. So thank you everybody for coming today. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you to see if there's anyone who raised their hand or offered anything up or has any other questions at this point.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff. Yes, there are a couple of suggestions. Workflows and automation came in as suggestions for you for additional topics. So while we're on the topic of additional topics, at the end of the, and it's great if you guys don't think of something before we sign off this webinar. When you do sign off, you will be directed to a survey, a GoToWebinar survey. If you think of something, go ahead and place in the comments in there some additional topics, because we can make sure that we get those to Jeff as well, just in case you think of something, like I said, after we end the session today, so you don't get it in the questions queue. There are no hands raised and there are no other questions at this time, so I will say thank you so much, Jeff, for all that you do for the user group community. We definitely appreciate it. For those of you on the call with us today, thank you so much for attending and for the questions. Great interaction. The session today has been recorded, just a reminder, and the recording and the PowerPoint will be uploaded into the crmug.com user group community within about 48 business hours. So give us a little bit of time, and then you can go ahead and look for it. Again, next week, part 3. So please make sure you join us for that. If you haven't registered, you'll find that in upcoming webinars within the community site, or you can take a look at the events guide that'll come out on Sunday night as well. So once again, thank you so much, everybody, for attending today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Stay happy and stay healthy, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you all in person, possibly in Nashville.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Take care.